if you have pocket jacks and there's a 4-bet, just fold. You'll be happier then, okay?
So Lee, here's the situation. You've got pocket jacks, playing 2-5, no limit hold'em.
Yep.
Tight player opens for 20. Another solid player makes it 75. And you're next.
With my pocket jacks.
With your pocket jacks.
Can I have a different hand, please? How about 10-6 offsuit?
So we're going to look at different situations today where it's right to fold pocket jacks, where it's clearly right, where it's maybe right, somewhat right, and it's a dicey situation. And we're using jacks here to refer to jacks, 10s, 9s, anything on down, but jacks are the ones that get us because all that
they got
beautiful
paint on them.
Right, exactly. The most obvious time when it's correct to fold pocket jacks is when there's a 4-bet.
Yes.
That's the easiest one,
right?
In general.
And let's have an example, please.
Okay. One example would be the villain opens. We'll just use 2-5 as an example. He opens for 20, and we make it 80, and now he makes it 250.
Yep.
Okay. And let's say the stacks are 1,000. Okay. The basic rule of thumb here is if you're playing against a player who's a tight-ish, solid player who's in it, usually at low stakes, you're rarely going to get somebody out of line. By out of line, I mean making a 4-bet without a premium hand.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can generally narrow their range down to aces, kings, queens, or ace-king.
Yep, that's about it. Especially 4-bets. I mean, quite often the ace-king is gone from the 4-bet.
Right. Oftentimes it is, right? And so what happens is there's an emotional component because when we make our raise with the jacks, we're kind of committed and we're excited about playing this hand. Right. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're facing this huge bet that's jeopardizing all or most of our stack if we stay in. You may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? It takes a lot of discipline to fold there, but what you got to realize is that if you know that you're up against aces, kings, queens, or ace-king, it's correct to fold. Even though you have the ace-king beat by a tiny bit, when you're behind, you're just way, way behind.
Right.
And that's the gist of what we want to get across is, for the most part, if you're facing a 4-bet in a low-stakes game with pocket jacks, you should just close your eyes and fold.
Amen.
Okay, so that was a specific situation where it's us against one other opponent. Okay?
Right.
The other time where it can be clearly correct to fold with jacks, and this might even only involve a 3-bet, is when there's 2 other raisers.
Right. Let's say you have the button, and there is a raise, again, in a 2-5 game to 20, and now somebody makes it 75 in front of you. And now you're facing a cold 3-bet.
Right.
From a non-insane player.
Right.
And again, the stacks are 1,000. And you've got your pocket jacks on the button, and there's this 3-bet to 75 in front of you.
Right.
Well, here's your problem. Quite often that 3-bet is going to be queens, kings, aces, and ace-king. You still have the opener to act again.
Who might 4-bet.
Who might wake up with kings.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so that is often a situation where you really do have to seriously consider folding pocket jacks.
If the stacks are small.
If the stacks are not giving you the correct odds to set mine.
Which would be, on the button, my general rule of thumb is if you know you're going to be last to act throughout the hand, which you do know that on the button.
Right.
What I need is a 10-to-1 minimum. So if the bet is 75, and let's say I know that somehow there's not going to be a 4-bet. Let's say I'm closing the action, okay? If the bet is 75, then I need a minimum of effective stacks of 750 each.
Right.
But that's the absolute minimum. That makes it basically a break-even play, in my opinion. So with 1,000, I would call the 75 there, closing the action. But with 500, I would not. And this is another one of the important points we want to stress, that when you get up in these 3-bet and 4-betting ranges, whether or not to fold or not depends on whether or not you can legitimately set mine with your pocket jacks.
Agreed.
Whether or not you're closing the action very often should be the determining factor of whether to fold or not. A decent example of that is, let's say the initial raiser is under the gun. We're in the big blind with pocket jacks, okay? So the initial raiser opens for 20 and it comes back around, and let's say the small blind makes it 80. Okay. So now you've got the pocket jacks, and both these guys are solidish players. They've got good hands. Let's say the stacks are really deep, like 2,000. Okay, so you're getting plenty of good odds to set mine, even out of position, right? But it still can be correct to fold here because you're not closing the action, because some number of times you're going to call that 75, and now when this guy makes it 250 under the gun and it comes back around, you're no longer getting the right odds.
Right.
Okay, as a rule of thumb, I think it's generally good to fold when there's two other raisers, even though you're only facing a 3-bet.
Right.
When you're not closing the action. But now let's change it to where you are closing the action.
Let's say that somebody opens to 20 in early position.
Okay.
You call with your pocket jacks.
Okay.
Now somebody makes it 75 behind you.
Exactly.
And now the original raiser calls at
Just
75.
calls. Right.
So now it's another 55 to you. The stacks are 1,000. Go for it, because you're closing the action.
Right.
It's 55. There's a whole bunch to win if you hit your set. Now it's perfectly fine to call, closing the action, and look for a jack.
Another way to look at that is, what would you do with pocket deuces there? If you would call pocket deuces, then you should call the pocket jacks. If it's correct to set mine, it's correct to set mine. Right? Agreed. So that's a good way of thinking about these sometimes, is just pretend you got deuces and ask yourself, would I want to see this flop?
So here's the thing, Tommy. It might be wrong to fold pocket jacks in one of these situations that we talked about, but it can't be very wrong. Let's look at these situations where you're pretty sure that your opponent has queens or better or ace king.
Okay.
Well, there's 16 combinations of ace king. There's 6 combinations of each big pocket pair. So that's 18 total, queens, kings, and aces. So it's a hair more likely that they have you crushed. And then on the flip side of that other hair, you're basically flipping. You're a little bit ahead.
Right.
So the deal is that, yeah, maybe it's wrong to fold pocket jacks, but it's not very wrong. Right. And it may be very wrong to get involved.
Yeah. You're never going to make a big mistake, no matter what method of analysis you use. You're never going to make a big mistake folding jacks to a 4-bet in a low stakes game.
Exactly. All right, Tommy, we came up with some good reasons that you should fold pocket jacks. Knowing it's the right thing, actually releasing them from your hand, much harder.
It really is. And this is how I do it. I've been doing this for years. And that is, oftentimes when I make an aggressive play and I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of hope the guy doesn't re-raise me because that means I'm beat. But if he does, it means I'm beat. So I plan in advance. I mean, virtually any time I 3-bet before the flop with anything but aces, I guess, I've already decided in my mind what I'm going to do if I get shoved on. But it's that act of planning in advance that allows me to fold. You know, for many, many years, I did it the normal way, which is I get excited, I get my jacks, I raise, and then the guy raises, and at that moment, I'm like, oh shit, now what do I do? And now,
that feeling, right?
and that is a mistake. You know, to be caught by surprise at all, I believe is a mistake. But when you've decided in advance, I'm going to raise, and I'm going to fold if the guy re-raises me, it's like so easy. It makes it easier to raise because you're not afraid of anything.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
it's just, and it not only does it make it easier to make the correct play, it makes it easier to make the correct play correctly, which is to just fold gracefully. Like, yeah, hey, take it, no big deal.
Next
and
case,
when when you 3-bet and then fold to a 4-bet like you're waiting for a bus, that freaks people out. That's worth money in itself.
Amen.
Okay, Lee, I think we uncovered some good stuff here. Let's put it in a little summary.
I agree.
You do it.
Well, you do it.
No, you do it.
Okay. All right. So basically, if you have pocket jacks and there's a 4-bet, just fold. You'll be happier that way. Okay?
That's good.
If there's a 3-bet that's coming from 2 different guys and you're not closing the action, just fold. The one time you can jump in with your jacks, if it's pretty clear you're beaten, is if you're closing the action and you're getting the right price to set mine. Otherwise, just fold and you'll be happier that way. Okay,
We need you.
We need you. This is the part of the video where we beg for your involvement.
These guys are desperate for viewers.
Seriously, please just click that button down there so we know that you're on board and we'll get a warm feeling on our hearts. Thank you.